remember popping the question?
And Tony Kornheiser, of course. I got down on one knee, looked up into her eyes, and Rihanna said, "Who are you?" And then she called for security.
Yeah, I was going to say security would be the next one.
Yeah.
If I showed you 15 pictures, and Rihanna was one of them, the other 14 were just like people in the public eye.
Yeah.
Would you know for certain which one was Rihanna?
Yes, especially if you showed me pictures, for example, of the Cleveland Indians.
Okay, yeah, I would think that's
Rihanna.
less hard.
I would know that.
Less difficult.
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Nick Foles may break the bank, Kyler Murray appears headed for the NFL, and Steve Young joins us to talk about this weekend's playoff games. But we begin today with yet another young quarterback whisperer getting one of the vacant head coaching jobs in the NFL. A couple of weeks ago, the Miami Dolphins fired Adam Gase after 3 years and 23-25. Today, it is being reported the New York Jets are set to sign him. So Gase goes from AFC East to AFC East. Wilbon, did Gase earn a second gig so soon?
I'm going to get there. In the meantime, wake me when the run on experienced, qualified black coaching candidates starts. Let me know when
I will.
Let me know when that run begins.
I've got an alarm set for that, so I'll let you know.
We both may be Rip Van Winkle before they get to that run. Not particularly. No. Adam Gase didn't do anything in Miami that screamed out, you got to have him. I mean, he didn't replace Don Shula in anybody's hearts in South Florida or even Jimmy Johnson's. So, no. I heard this and I just went, really? We have gone back in time to a very lazy time in NFL hiring, where owners and executives in the NFL front offices seem scared, and they would just rather reach out to anybody other than act with some sort of boldness and intellect and depth and come up with new, fresh, exciting candidates. They're lazy.
So I looked at this one. I've looked at all the coaching hires, and I'm okay so far to this point with all the coaching hires. Matt LaFleur might be a little bit of a stretch.
Kingsbury
may be a little bit of a stretch, but he has been affiliated with some very talented young quarterbacks. This guy I don't get. I don't get this. He was 6-10 last year. He started out 3-0 this year, closed 4-9, and one of those four was on that miracle situation against New England that just never
can't happen.
That's not him.
Right.
He had nothing to do with that. No. So the only thing I could think of is that the head-to-head with the Jets for 3 years, he's 5-1. But Mike, he's 13-7 against the rest of the world. 13-17. I don't see it. So I don't see it.
You mean the people in New York? In the Jets offices, they only watched their own games.
That's what
they thought Adam Gase was George Halas.
And by the way,
really?
I don't think that Sam Darnold at the moment, I think he's behind Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield at the moment.
Behind a lot of people.
So
was Adam Gase.
I wouldn't have done this.
We're into the lazy portion.
This is the one I would not have done.
For NFL hiring, it seems. Yesterday, Tony Dungy told us it simply isn't financially practical for the Eagles to keep Nick Foles and Carson Wentz. Today, we have our friend Mike Freeman writing in Bleacher Report that Foles figures to be one of the most pursued potential free agents ever. Freeman cites one AFC team executive as telling him so many teams will pursue Foles, it will be a Reggie White-like recruitment. Tony, does this make sense to you, Foles becoming the object of everybody's desire?
I love Freeman.
I know you do.
I have him on the podcast every week.
We both do.
And I would just say to him, slow your roll, Sparky. I would point out that in games that Nick Foles has started other than with Philadelphia, if you want to say Philadelphia, great. Other than Philadelphia, which would include, I think, the Rams and the Chiefs, he's 5-7 with 10 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. I don't know that causes a stampede, Mike. I don't know that.
I think it should. Now, if I'm Philadelphia, and I understand
I'd like to keep him
there's a
Philly.
$20 million situation here for the most part, and Foles, if he leaves, I think would have to wind up with a $2 million buyout.
Which would be nothing compared to what he would get.
But, Tony, we just talked about this. We always sit down and we write down all the quarterbacks that we think are legit starting quarterbacks. And one of us will get to 14 and one of us will get to 15, and then we stop. That means half the league could upgrade by getting Nick Foles. I'm not going to say Reggie White-like,
Mike,
because Reggie White is an absolute. Obviously, was a Hall of Fame player like
magic is just with the Eagles.
But you don't even need. Okay, but you don't even need magic. How about competence? Nick Foles has demonstrated that. Beyond that,
last year at this time, there was a run on Kirk Cousins. And the Vikings ended up paying an incredible amount of money for Kirk Cousins. Are they in the playoffs this year?
No.
They're not, because he's a good quarterback, not a great quarterback.
Not a stampede. If there were people jumping up in the front row to try to get Kirk Cousins, Foles has proven 1,000,000 times more than Kirk Cousins.
He's proven it in a great playoff run and what appears to be another great playoff run.
That's two more than Kirk Cousins.
I think he's best off with the Eagles.
Me too.
But
if they can't keep him because of that $20 million price tag, then what?
You can spend $20 million on him. Okay. Yesterday, Sean Payton called his team together for a little show and tell. He walked into a meeting room with 3 armed guards, the Lombardi Trophy, and $225,000 in cash. And Payton said, quote, "Y'all want this? Win 3 bleeping games," unquote. Wilbon, are you impressed with Payton's motivational technique?
No. But I'm not a football player. I'm not running through the wall. Well, there's certain things I would run through the wall for, but none of the stuff that football players would. And I guess when you're that age and somebody puts $200,000 in front of you, I'm trying to think back to when I was 22, 24, 26, 32. It doesn't impress me. And I got to think that the smarter guys in that locker room, starting with Drew Brees, would just sort of chuckle to themselves because you know what it's not going to help? It's not going to help sack Nick Foles or take him out of his rhythm or put a Philadelphia running back on the ground. It's not going to help any of that stuff on Sunday. None.
So what I wanted was the breakdown of the money. Was it in 10s? Was it in 20s? Was it in 50s? Was it in hundreds? And you'll remember this. Don King used to take a satchel, and he stuffed it with money, and he said to somebody, "Here's $100,000." But it was all in ones.
First of all,
and
it was
$100,000.
probably a couple of $100.
It was ones. That's all it was. So I wanted the breakdown. Now, I particularly think this is brilliant.
Why?
I understand that football players with multi-million-dollar contracts, $250,000 is not that big a deal. You made it clear just now it wasn't a big deal to you either.
No. But it's not the amount.
When you see it, when you see that cash, did you see their reactions? They all went, wow, when you see that cash in front of you, because that's the share that each player will get. And it's just...
Is it going to help them in the moment?
I think so.
Really?
I do. I think so. And by the way, they're 5-0 at home with Brees and Payton in playoff games.
That would excite me if I was on that team more.
I thought it was brilliant.
That cash.
I'm just saying I thought it was brilliant. I did.
Cheesy is
I would dive in.
I think
I would dive in.
It's time for our Kyler Murray update, Tony. Susan Slusser reports in the San Francisco Chronicle that even the Oakland A's, who own Murray's baseball rights, expect the kid to enter the upcoming NFL draft. If Murray then chooses to play football, he'd have to return to the A's the $4 million signing bonus he received. So using recent NFL drafts, Murray figures to get a signing bonus that's 2 to 3 times what the A's gave him. So what do you see happening with Murray?
Well, I think it got much more interesting because of our close personal friend, Cliff Kingsbury. Because last October, Cliff Kingsbury, while coaching Texas Tech, was asked about Kyler Murray. And he said, if I had the number one, and he's coaching college now, if I have the number 1 draft pick, I'd take this kid. You know what draft pick he's got with Arizona?
He didn't have it.
He's got the number. He's got the number. What do they do with Josh Rosen?
He'll have some influence. He ain't making the pick.
Do you think it's possible that Arizona would say to people, give me an offer for Josh Rosen because we're taking this kid?
Maybe. They might say
Now,
that.
the other thing I would say, and I think he's a great quarterback, he's 5'9".
He's not 5'9". He's like 5'11".
He's 5'9".
I realize that would probably make
him
a
6'5" lineman.
Starting quarterback, shortest in the league.
Shorter than Wilson, shorter than Brees.
By the way, Doug Flutie has some success.
Yes,
he's
did.
About that size.
Yes, he did.
5'9", 5'10".
Yeah.
And he's taller. Murray's taller than that. But
I don't think
regardless, here's the thing, Tony. The money from football is shorter, and it's not guaranteed. The baseball money looks better because it's guaranteed. You talked about a pile of money.
Well,
football money's not guaranteed except the bonus at the beginning.
Quarterbacks, big-name quarterbacks.
Guaranteed.
Well, Kirk Cousins just got all of it guaranteed.
But he'd been in the NFL
just saying,
for a while.
if you're a big-time quarterback, there's more money in the shorter
Initially.
term. Yeah, now the longer career is baseball.
Do you take the 12? Let's say it's $14 million. Do you take the 14 from football, realize that it may be the only 14 you get?
You know why
Or do you bet on baseball and your own skills where the money could be longer, bigger, and more guaranteed?
How many years am I going to spend in the minors before I get there? I have to take that into consideration. That's all? You think he's that good? I don't know.
2.
Giannis Antetokounmpo, how'd I do on that?
Very good.
And his Milwaukee Bucks beat James Harden and his Houston Rockets last night. Harden had 42 points. The Greek Freak had 27 points and 21 rebounds. Wilbon, which player would you rather have for the rest of this season?
This is hard because obviously I'd want either one of them. But, Tony, if you tell me that Chris Paul's going to be healthy and available for Houston, then I'll take James Harden. Because I know that James Harden is one of the 5 best players in the league the last 5 years. But Chris Paul's the most important player on that team, as we saw last year when they were up 3. They couldn't close after leading that series late.
Couldn't hit any three-point shots.
It's Chris Paul. Therefore, my answer is Antetokounmpo. It is.
Right.
Because he can grab you. Last night's line, I know that reminded you of a player in NBA history.
Number 6.
Tell the audience who it is. Number 6. That would be William Felton Russell?
William Felton Russell.
Okay, so
Bill F. Russell,
so I'm
as we like to call him.
I'm taking him.
Yeah.
I'm taking the points, the rebounds, the dominance, the inside defense. Harden doesn't play any defense, even though he's better than he has been. And I know the Greek Freak has not proven anything yet, but Harden didn't prove anything in May and June, not much either.
Right.
So I'm taking Antetokounmpo.
So I think the Greek Freak is a better player, potentially. I will say this, and I know you will agree. If you give me 27 and 21 every night, I'm going to get a ring.
Kidding?
I'm going to get because it's 21 rebounds.
Yes.
Because that is dominating.
Don't tell me he don't shoot threes. He does everything else on the court.
But I'm going to take Harden as well. Because I like a guy with the ball in his hands, and I like scoring. I have fallen in love with scoring. He's going to give me for the rest of this year, and it's only this year we're talking about, not the playoffs.
30 and 10.
He's going to give me 35 every night.
Yeah.
He's that good. He's going to give me 35.
But we're talking about playoffs. We're talking about playoffs now.
Well,
he hasn't done it in the playoffs, Tony.
He's choked in the playoffs.
Okay, so
he's choked.
Antetokounmpo has not yet had a chance to prove himself in the playoffs.
I'm on the record. I'll take Harden. Let's take a break. Coming up, how will playoff football be different for Patrick Mahomes? We're going to ask Steve Young.
We'll also ask him whether the Cowboys are a good match for coaching darling Sean McVay. Can I have Chris Paul and Antetokounmpo?
No.
Come on now.
No.
That's what I want.
Chris Paul should be on the Lakers. Still should be on the Lakers.
You know what?
Your boy.
Absolutely.
That's your boy.
I love him.
That's your boy.
Chris Paul should have been a Laker.
Yeah. Fewer than 48 hours away from kickoff of this weekend's playoff games, which makes it a great time to bring in my former teammate on the LA Express, Hall of Fame quarterback Steve
You were
Young.
an old man by then.
They called me Gramps.
Did they?
But Steve, tell him I could play, couldn't I? I could play.
Sid Gilman told me all the time that you were one of the best.
I was. All right, this is Patrick Mahomes' first playoff start. Last week, 3 guys had their first playoff starts. They all lost. What would you tell Mahomes to adjust for this, if anything?
I would say nothing. You think about when they started the season in the chart, he came out of the gate and the whole league was not jealous, but they were focused on Patrick Mahomes. And every week, including early in the season, the Monday night game in Denver, it felt like the whole league, including the Denver defense, was laser focused to knock this guy down. And so for 16 weeks, he's taken every big shot you can take, and he's done very well. So to me, he's been in a playoff mode because the whole team's fixated on taking him down. Now, there's been some slow starts. There's been some games they didn't score quite enough, but in the end, they've lost when the defense has let people score 33, 40-plus points. I think it's not about Patrick Mahomes. Patrick, keep doing exactly what you're doing. Pressure tested for the playoffs. Defense, show up and make sure you get the job done.
Let's go to the Cowboys and the Rams. Everyone is trying to hire the next Sean McVay. He's trying to win his first playoff game. I believe he's 0-1 at this point. Do you like this matchup for him?
I do at home. He's got to get off the schneid, right? I mean, he's already gotten beat at home once. You don't want to get beat at home twice. You start to get a theme. So the pressure's on him and the rest of the Rams. So I expect them to, answer that call. The real question is Jared Goff. The one thing that we learned this season is Jared Goff capable, if he doesn't get all the help from the defense, he doesn't get help from the running back, is he good enough to go make it happen himself? And I think the answer so far has been, well, when you get isolated, maybe not. And so every defense is now going to try to figure out a way to get to Jared Goff to get isolated to prove it to us that you can be a playoff or even Super Bowl champion. And I think that's what they got to face. That'll be the number one thing you got to see is Jared Goff owning the playoff game.
Seems like the biggest story about Chargers-Patriots is Phillip Rivers. And I get so angry when people talk about legacy, particularly with Rivers. Does a quarterback, Steve, ever think before a game or during a game, oh, I got to win this one so my resume will look better 40 years from now to some dopes? This legacy thing, I mean, what do you make of it?
There's something, Michael, I don't want to disappoint you. There's something there. I mean, in law, the saying goes, possession is 9/10 of the law. In quarterbacking, perception is 9/10 of the law. And you know that how you're perceived matters, and you have to live with that. Even when you're playing, you have to live with it. Well, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, you haven't won on the road, you haven't done the playoff game, you haven't the Super Bowl. It's like it never ends. And so the more that you can talk about it as legacy, I think about it as just knocking down the hurdles to so you can be one of the greats. You want to be one of the greats. You think you've played to be one of the greats. That's what Phillips done. If he can do something like win a playoff game in New England, that helps, no question. Not just legacy, but just perception. And every day you walk around, you go to the grocery store, the perception matters. People say to you, well, why can't you win this game? Trust me, as a quarterback, perception is 9/10 of the law.
9/10 of the law, Tony. That's pretty good, isn't it? On his podcast, Tom Brady says he loves football because there he can show his full range of emotions, which he cannot do in polite society. Does this resonate with you at all?
It does. I mean, people ask me, what do you miss about football? And I think it's that football and playing quarterback in the NFL and to be good at it or even great at it, it took every inch of you. It took every inch of your physical, emotional, even spiritual, mental capacity. Every inch of you was tested. And there's nothing else in life that's like that. Nothing. And so when Tom talks about being able to just be himself, it's the full measure of who you are. Not just being able to scream at people and yell and run around and do crazy dances. It really is that it takes the full measure of you that you can't find anywhere else in life. And that's why it's so hard to leave. And then when you're one of the great quarterbacks like Tom Brady, that's what it's going to be super hard to leave because it's taken every inch of him the whole way.
Yeah, because, he loves to yell at offensive coordinators. He can't yell at the waiter. It's not going to work. We'll get you out of here on this. Eagles and Saints. The Saints blew the Eagles out in November. I mean, they got over 40, I think. If you were in Drew Brees' position, how much confidence would that game give you?
A lot of confidence because I don't know what's necessarily going to change. Yes, the Eagles are better than they were. I think that was the game that kind of spurred them and kind of woke them up, but just pushed them into a corner that they had to fight their way out of. And how can you not be impressed with what they've done? But winning that game, what's the new news for the Eagles? Yes, I think a better secondary. But unless he runs into something like he did in Dallas, where 4 guys can rush Drew Brees for the whole game and just get into his kitchen constantly. In that game, it got so prevalent that in the overtime, you could saw Drew threw that last interception because he got tired of them being right in his chin. If they can do that with 4 guys and the Philadelphia Phillies, that the Eagles can do that, then Drew's got a problem. But short of that, he has no problem.
Thank you, Steve. We missed you last week. Thanks for coming back.
Happy New Year.
Great. You too. Thanks for the Phillies comment. I don't know where'd that come from. I was just looking around for that.
One Philly team is.
Let's take one last break. Still to come, is it smart for the Chargers to sign a second kicker for Sunday's game?
Did you ask me that, having a second kicker last week?
No, you would like that. Yeah, you would like that.
And are the Celtics suddenly the best team in the East? I'd like to have that Robbie Gould guy, because he was there.
No, yeah.
And if he was wearing a Canada Goose coat
you'd have put him
and
out there.
some Rogans, I'd have taken him out.
When Domino's is out for delivery.
Interruption is brought to you by Domino's. Order online and track your order.
Happy time, people. Happy 70th birthday, George Foreman.
Wow.
Foreman went through 3 iterations as an athlete. He was beloved when he carried a small American flag around the ring in the 1968 Olympics. He was disliked in his early pro career for being standoffish and a bully.
People hated him.
Anti-Ali.
They hated him.
And then beloved again when, as an old man, he regained the championship and seemed so approachable. Plus, he made hundreds of millions of dollars on an indoor grill, whatever that is.
You know what the estimated figure is what he earned, including rights fees and likenesses and sales? Nearly $200 million.
Fantastic.
How about that? Off a grill.
Good for him.
Why didn't you think about that? You're a grill master.
Happy anniversary, Bud Grant. On this day 3 years ago, the then 88-year-old former Vikings coach went out for the ceremonial coin toss in a golf shirt, despite the game time temperature registering a cool -9 degrees. And this is why Bud Grant is heroic. This is why when he holds his next yard sale, Wilbon and I are going.
Bud Grant, Lou Grant, and Prince. Isn't that the order in Minnesota?
Yes.
You think?
Yes.
I would say so.
Happy trails to a win for Creighton. Creighton had the ball under its own basket with 0.8 seconds to go in a 3-point lead. They attempted the long bomb inbounds, but it went too far, so the ball is brought
what
back.
happens.
Marquette inbounded, and Sam Hauser threw up a prayer from about 28 feet, which went down. Though he might not have actually beaten the clock. In the overtime, Marquette pulled away. And the sub-headline to the game was that Marcus Howard set an all-time Big East record for single-game points with 53. Wilbon, are you familiar with Mr. Howard?
Yes, and he's not the subhead. He is must-watch TV for college basketball almost as much as Zion Williamson. And I mean that.
You watch him all the time?
As much as I can.
25 great Big East players in history didn't get this. 40 great ones never got this much. Let's go to the big finish.
Let's do it.
Rams running back Todd Gurley is off the injury report. Good to go for Saturday's game versus the Cowboys. That's a big deal.
Yeah, because the Rams have zero chance without Todd Gurley. Should be a real game, but they got to have him. The Chargers are adding a second kicker just for kickoffs for Sunday's game against the Patriots. Good strategy.
They want only touchbacks. They don't want Patterson touching the ball at all, and their incumbent kicker isn't getting it that deep. Kevin Durant not among the starters in the latest All-Star Game fan voting. You surprised, right?
Well, LeBron and Luka Doncic seem to be getting all the votes at forward. No KD?
Well, he's got to get votes.
The Brewers signed Yasmani Grandal to a one-year, $18 million deal. Your thoughts?
They're going for it again. They're not a small market team anymore. They are going for it. Last one, the Celtics crushed the Pacers. They have the Heat tonight. They're the best team in the East, right?
Not yet. I think they will be. But Toronto and Milwaukee have to be reckoned with, Tony. So does Philly.
We're out of time. We will try and do better the next time. And I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts.
Dan Huff, Golf Pride. Thank you very much.
Golf.
Grips, baby.
Every day. My
Grips.
God.